Hello, and welcome to My Artist Friend, a podcast where we get to learn more about the artists behind the art you love. I'm your host, Becky Helms, and today I'd like to introduce you to my artist friend, Jessica Watkins of Tiny Deer Studio and the Pen Department. We have been friends for years, and this conversation, it was so fun to catch up. If you've watched my YouTube videos about making pens, you'll know that Jessica helped me produce my first enamel pens and effectively changed my life. We chatted about making difficult choices and big life moves. We chat about doing markets in different ways. We chat about finding ways to play in your creativity, and also lots of love for HEB as Texans in different states. Plus, how she even manages running two very different kinds of businesses and how they're both creatively fulfilling in very different ways. So there's so much more in this chat, and I hope you enjoy. Hi, Jess.
Hi, my friend.
It's nice to see you.
You too. I miss seeing your face.
I know. I miss you too. So just for listeners, we have known each other for a long time. How did we first meet? I think it was at shows where you would come up from Houston.
Yeah, it must have been at shows when I came up from Houston to Austin.
Yeah, and because I remember there was one show I went to. I forget what it was. It was downtown, and you had the most beautiful booth I had ever seen. Like, it blew my mind, like changed my brain chemistry when it comes to booth design. Because you were doing prints and you had these beautiful, like, framed prints, but it was like you had the table, but you built up around and you had like kind of a little hole that you were sitting in.
My little window. I miss that booth. It was funny because people either asked me if I was telling fortunes or selling kisses. I don't miss that part specifically, but I really loved that booth design. And if you ask Jacob, my husband, like, he has had to stop commenting on the fact that I basically want to redesign my booth every time I do a new event. Like, even if it feels like we've used a design for a couple times, it feels really efficient, it looks really good, my brain still is just like, how about we change it and do something else next time? How about we just figure out something else?
Yeah. Well, and then he's like, how labor intensive is this going to be? Because you build wooden structures and stuff, and it's so
I don't
cool.
I feel like I don't do that so much anymore just because I'm old and my body hurts and but we only have a Prius, and before we only had a yard. So basically everything has to be built with the consideration that, like, it has to fit in the car.
100%.
Yeah. The booth that I'm designing for my upcoming holiday market season, I accidentally ordered grid walls that don't fit in the car with everything else, so we had to go return them. We returned them, and I ordered smaller ones that will fit in the car. So new booth coming.
Yeah, I was about to say, a hot tip for listeners: always measure the inside of your car before you buy. I have gone in with very specific and odd measurements into Lowe's, looking for cutting things down and
usually I'm really good at it, but because we've got so much going on and we just moved and I was like, let me just order these. I'll just get the biggest size. No, the biggest size will not fit in the car. So lesson learned.
I also have terrible spatial relation. I don't know how much will fit. I have to have the measurements.
Oh, and
many times I'm walking out of IKEA. Are you
I'm
really?
the opposite. Typically, I can look at a thing and be like, that's going to fit there.
Oh my God.
That's definitely
you need to come to IKEA
that's
with
not
me.
Going to fit. But I ordered it online. So if I'd been able to see it, I would have known that it wasn't going to fit. But because it was just numbers on a screen, I was like, maybe.
It's amazing. Yeah, no, you need to come to IKEA with me, because there have been many times we're pushing it out and then we're like, wait a minute, is this gonna fit? We'll see. And then it's scooted all the way up through where the passenger side is.
No.
And I'm terrible at it. So what is your market scene looking like up in Portland? Because you did a move from Texas to LA to California and now up in Portland.
Yeah. So when we were in LA for 7 years, I did a few events, but I was so focused on starting the business and working the business full time and then growing Tiny Deer Studio. I didn't really do that many pop-ups. And then, of course, with the pandemic, I really didn't do any pop-ups. So for the last few years when we were in LA, I was hosting my own pop-up because we lived in this big commercially zoned live work house that had a small parking lot out front.
It's awesome.
And it was on like a major street. So we took advantage of that and we hosted a pop-up for about 2 years just to kind of slowly give artists in the community access to just kind of reintroducing themselves back into selling in person in a situation that was
cool.
Like super chill, like I didn't charge any fees. So for about 2 years, that's basically the only pop-up that I really did was the one that I was hosting. So I was spoiled because I didn't have to fit anything into the car. I didn't have to, so that was great. But moving to Portland, we moved in February and then almost immediately it was basically the season for events. Yeah. So the thing that I found in Portland is that there's actually too many.
Really?
Yeah, because everybody's trying to like fit everything into the sunny season before it gets all dreary and rainy. There was so many events happening. Yeah. So, I mean, that was good for me because, you know, my initial goal in moving here was to try and redevelop a creative community and like find my people and, you know, just feel like I fit somewhere. So we were doing events mostly as a means of just meeting people.
Yeah.
So the idea that there were so many available to us was super helpful. So we have, you know, we've met people, we've made friends, we've kind of learned a little bit about which events suit us the most. Yeah. So it's been good. So I mean, and now winter, we've got some really big ones lined up and I'm excited about that. But also like, I haven't really done big holiday events since I was in Houston, basically.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Well, A, I'm sure it's going to be great. But B, when you're spoiled for choice then for like all these events, how, especially like moving to a new place, like how have you kind of navigated, how have you like chosen kind of where to focus and kind of what shows to go for?
Well, before we actually started selling at events here, we went to as many as we could as shoppers.
Yeah.
Again, to meet people, to kind of see what the scene is like what are other people selling, like how busy are these events, how, you know, do they seem like they're well organized, do they seem like they're well attended? So we did that kind of research before we started actually selling here. And it was really helpful for me to determine that I didn't need to bring jewelry to pop-ups.
Oh, interesting.
Like, you know, I have so many different products. And a part of that was because I was using, and still am using, Tiny Deer Studio as kind of a virtual showroom for the pin department. So it was, you know, I've made so many different things so that I can show my clients, hey, like these are the things that you can do. So, but because of that, my product range is like vast.
Prolific.
But when you're doing in-person events, like that's a pain to have to figure out like, how do I pack and carry and display all of these things and is it worth it? So, you know, in visiting the pop-ups and in actually doing a few, we've learned that like, A, I don't need to bring jewelry because so many other sellers have jewelry, and B, like, it's been better to focus on the things that are like very much mine. So like my disco ball acrylic sculptures, my 5-panel caps, those. Like things like that. So it's been really, really helpful actually to kind of hone and like pare things down and like really figure out these are the things that people want from me. And these are the things that help me to stand out. And that's what I should focus on.
That's awesome. I love the research of it all because I was just talking to Carla, Shark City Slicker, because she moved from Austin to back home to where she was in San Jose, and we were talking about a lot of the exact same things. Because when I moved to Austin, I did the same thing. I went to the shows. I kind of looked around at the scene, kind of like met people, because I was more blogging at the time.
Yeah.
So I could kind of use that as an excuse to go take photos of events and meet people.
Yeah.
And then kind of squirrel my way in there once I opened my shop up again, so I knew where to go. And I love making friends at events, because like you already get each other, like you have this kind of like underlying vocabulary of life as a maker.
I mean, going to events here when we first got here was so fun, and one of the things that I really like to do, especially when I'm entering that kind of atmosphere where it's like it's full of creatives and I am actively seeking to meet people, I like to bring free little goodies with me. So typically I'll have I had business cards and like little pins in each of my jacket pockets, and if I met somebody that we kind of like connected, or if they already knew who I was, which is always a strange feeling,
so cool,
I always reward them with a pin or whatever. So that's always fun. And then, that leads to chatting more and reconnecting. And, that's been...
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been great.
That's awesome. So the community has been kind of welcoming and like kind of easy to kind of slide into there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Portland is so much smaller than LA or Houston. And
it's about the same size as Ann Arbor now, which was like strange, because I was trying to figure out like how to figure out how much smaller Ann Arbor really was, because the universities are the same size, but like it's so much smaller.
It's so much smaller. I mean, we're a little bit spoiled here because, I mean, coming from Houston, which is just like known for like highways and traffic, and then coming from LA, which again is known for highways and traffic. In Portland, I mean, if you have to drive 20 minutes, that's far.
It's no, it's the same thing here. And like I was like, oh man, my Target's like 20 minutes away. That feels really far. And I was like, what am I talking about? Also, I'm driving past farms and trees. I'm not like in the middle of concrete and like fighting for my life on Mopac.
No, it's great. But I mean, because it's so much smaller, like it's been a lot easier to connect with people and to make friends. And before we decided to move to Portland, we already knew that they liked me, because we have more retailers in Portland than literally any other city. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's really cool. And when we visited the year before we decided to move here, and we went and visited all the shops that carry our stuff, and like,
so cool.
It just felt very welcoming, and it felt very much like a creative place that would be easy for me to meet people. And everybody's just been so sweet. I mean, with all the stuff that we've been going through, with like me hurting my back and having to move, and like just everything, like people who I've only met like once, or who I've only spoken with online, but who are local, have been so generous and like kind, and just, offering all kinds of help.
That's
and
awesome.
Yeah, it's been strange for me to like, it's like, I met you once, I don't know if I can accept your help to like use your truck and help me move. I don't know if I can do it.
That's the small town vibe, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Ann Arbor's the same way. Like, we have some friends up the road, and it's like, if you need anything, literally, I'll be there. Like, I don't know, who cares? Like,
no, I mean, same.
Yeah.
So we've been really lucky with that. So the feeling that we had when we visited was correct.
Yeah.
The assumption that it would be a good place for us to meet people and to still feel like we could be part of a creative community was correct. And that's really great, especially because leaving LA was so hard. Like, we spent 7 years just like really developing this creative community, and like feeling like we were a part of something, and especially with the pop-ups, just like bringing people together in a time that was like really tough, where everybody had been isolated. And we did not want to leave LA, but if we had to leave, we're glad that we landed here.
Yeah.
So at least there's that.
Yeah, for sure. It's wild when it's like your decision to move. Like there's not really, I mean, there are always outside considerations, like how expensive a place is, and
I mean,
like
that was the main consideration in leaving LA,
in
unfortunately.
Austin. Yeah, there was no way we could have afforded a house in Austin, you know, with everything around us is just skyrocketing. And you know, there were so many things, but like when we decided to move, it was like, oh no, this isn't for a job. This isn't for family. This is literally just on us now.
Yeah.
It feels like a huge leap of faith. But,
yeah, I mean, it is. But I mean, I have a history of those huge leaps. Like, I'm not typically afraid of that. When I was 18, I left Texas by myself on a Greyhound bus to move to Santa Barbara to go to school. Like,
that is wild.
I didn't even have a cell phone. I didn't even have a cell phone until I got there. Like, you know, and then so big moves like that I'm no stranger to those.
Yeah.
But this definitely felt different because we felt very much at home in LA, and leaving was tough. But ultimately we made the right decision. I mean, the main reason was the cost of living, but also considering the cost of living while entering this year, knowing that it was going to be such a difficult year. We could not have predicted how difficult a year it was going to be for us business wise. Like,
it's everybody. It's, you are not alone. You are not alone.
Yeah, no, and I know that I'm not alone, and that's comforting, but also heartbreaking. Like, the fact that anybody else is experiencing, you know, the severe decline in sales that we've experienced this year is just, it's tough. But if we had not decided to make that move, and if we had not moved when we did, it would be so much worse. It would be so much worse trying to navigate this year with massive cost of living in LA. So it's
it's wild out here right now, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to start this whole project, because I feel like I've been seeing this kind of like monoculture starting to come up. Everybody's buying the same things. Everyone's, you know, buying everything from Amazon, and houses look the same. And it just feels like it's creeping in. And then I see these small businesses closing because of sales and things. And it breaks my heart every time, because I'm like, the world needs your voice. The world needs your art. Like, I want to see weird stuff, and I want to see what comes out of a person's brain, not someone that's like copying stuff and selling it on Temu for like $2. Like, get out of here with that. Like, I want to see color and fun and personality and other perspectives, and that's
what I want to keep doing too. Like, you know, I don't want to work for anybody else.
No, ew, gross. Who wants that?
Like, I'm not wearing shoes right now. Why would I? No, why would I go to work?
I'm in leggings. I got a blazer on top and leggings on the bottom. Are you kidding me?
That's good luck.
But yeah, well, one of the things that you do, not just make your own art with Tiny Deer Studio, which I love. I have so many. I should have worn your earrings. I didn't even think about it. I have so many of your earrings and pins. I love them. But you also make, like you mentioned before, you make lots of products for other people with the pin department. And you are one of the first, like, if anyone asks me, I'm like, go to the pin department, go to Jess.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I had someone yell at me, and they were like, you just recommend your friends. And I'm like, yeah, she's great.
Why wouldn't
of course.
You? Why wouldn't you? That's wild.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, duh. But can you talk about kind of why, like, what started you as this? Oh, I call you a middle woman too. I have like YouTube videos years ago, and I call you a middle woman. The amount of people in my comments that are like, about that. Okay.
Wow. So Tiny Deer Studio came first. That started kind of when I was working real jobs back in 2011, and it was always just a side hustle. I mean, I did a lot of pop-ups, and I did, you know, a lot of stuff. But once everybody started making pins, I also started making pins. And at my last regular day job, I was in charge of making pins. And that's, of course, how we started working together.
Yeah.
And when we decided to move to LA, it just made sense for me to continue doing what I was already doing at my day job, but independently, and in a way that made sense to me. And I was able to, kind of control the process, which was important to me. So we started the pin department in 2017. Literally, we moved to LA. The first thing I did was like start processing orders. I had like the internet set up at like the bar in the kitchen before we literally even had our sofa or anything else set up. So 2017, hit the ground running with a very small list of clients that I had already been working with. So I started with pins, and then eventually we started branching out. So now I can make pretty much anything that you can imagine to be customized, mugs, tote bags, whatever, all of that good, like promotional type stuff, but then other things like blankets and whatever. So we kind of focus on...
Oh, yeah, you have those woven blankets?
Well, they're knit. We have blankets that are knit in the U.S.
They're gorgeous.
I love, love, love designing them, but they're bulky and expensive, so it's hard for me to, I would have to do a pre-order to do them again. But so I mean, we focus on sourcing just like quality products, and I manage the, production process and the quality control process. And it's my husband, Jacob, and I run the business full time together. So that's really great. And we get to do both. So we're making custom products for other artists and small businesses and organizations while also designing and producing goods as Tiny Deer Studio.
That's so fun.
It's pretty great. I mean, sales wise, not as great as it could be, but I have hope, and I think, if we can get through this year and we'll be okay. But I mean, being able to do both is really fun for me because, my brain can't always be focused on making my own stuff. So being able to help other creatives bring their visions to life, and I've had customers who they have a piece of art and they know they want to make something with it, but they're not exactly sure how it's going to translate or what would be the best thing. So that's always really fun for me when somebody's like, hey, I have this thing. What do you think I should do with it? Cool. And then I'm just like, oh, boom, boom, boom. Here's a list of all the things. I would make it into a tote bag. Here's a pattern. I would make it into some earrings. Here's how that would look. I don't get to do that part as often. Most people, have a pretty good idea of what they want, but being a part of other people's creative processes and helping them bring those visions to life is so rewarding.
That's so cool. And I love that you can access different parts of your creative self in doing that. And you probably get ideas from other folks get ideas from you.
Exactly.
And it's just this kind of transfer of creative.
Yeah. Well, and because I'm making my own products too, I'm able to offer that insight into how were things selling and how did things hold up over time, and just best practices for different products. And that's really great to be able to offer those things with confidence, and
absolutely
having that experience.
Yeah. So what is working now? What are people excited for in the land of products at the moment?
Well, for Tiny Deer Studio or just in general?
I mean, both. Yeah.
Both. So we have made a lot of bolo ties.
Yeah?
A lot of bolo ties.
Awesome.
Tiny Deer Studio, wholesale wise and retail wise, we do so many bolo ties.
Wild.
And it is wild.
Yeah,
and it was a surprise.
I never would have thought.
Yeah, me either.
Honestly.
But once I started making them, people got excited, so I just keep making them. And I've done
okay, here's some more.
Exactly. And I've done some really fun collaborations for bolo ties too. But our retailers love bolo ties. When I do in-person events, people get so excited about them. because they're, it's nostalgic and they're excited because they're like, nobody makes bolo ties that look like this. They're used to, like classic, like kind of Southwest, like silver and turquoise and
my dad had one.
A lot of the times,
my dad had a big one with, it was like a scorpion in like
so cool. I saw at one of the last events I did, there was a vendor who was selling vintage bolo ties, and she had some that had scorpions encased in resin. I was like, these are so cool. But I mean, because I'm making them out of enamel, and it's basically just like a bigger pin, but with the bolo cord, like they do so well. And I have had some customers who have, made their own too, and that's always really fun. But I would say bolo ties big time.
Interesting.
In both categories of making for customers and doing well in person.
I love that. Now, also, I love because you're wearing one right now.
I'm just wearing a bandana.
It's just a regular bandana.
Scarf ring?
I love your little scarf ring.
Yeah.
It's so cute. I need to get some more bandanas that are fun colors, because I was like, I'm going to wear a bandana the other day, and everything I own is black, and all my bandanas were black, and I was like, this is not helping anything.
I mean, that could still be really cute. Just a little bandana goth.
Right, exactly. I was like, this blazer right now is truly out of context for me.
And this gray that I'm wearing is a little bit out of context too, but it's very cozy. But I love a good bandana. I made these bandana rings so I cut a lot of acrylic for my disco ball pieces.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of space on the acrylic sheet, that I could use up for smaller things. So I started making these. They're not for sale yet because I'm just weird, and I'm developing them. I've cut so many of them just because every time I'm cutting a sheet, I'm like, let me use up some of this space. But they just need proper photos and packaging and marketing, like all anything else.
All those, the massive amount of things that we have to do in order to put a product to market. Yeah,
well, I thought about in my holiday markets, I might just have a bowl of them at the checkout, and people can like pick them. So we'll see if I do that. I probably
absolutely. I have to say, when I very first started, and I was just doing pins, just pin back buttons, and I had a little press at home, and I would design them and cut them out and everything by hand. And I would do anime conventions. And so my setup would be these little bowls, and I had chopsticks that I would put in, and people would pick them up with chopsticks.
That's
and
really
people
cute.
could like rifle around in them, and and it was awesome. I sold so many.
Yeah, that's so cute. Yeah, I did little pinback buttons too. And when I first started, so I had my prints and I had my buttons, and I'm just a sucker for children. So at art markets, if a kid came up to my booth, I would literally just give them a button. Now I have stickers, little shiny logo stickers that if a kid comes up, and I'll offer them a sticker. But
that's perfect.
Yeah,
I love it. I think a bowl of them would be amazing, especially with all the bright colors that you use with everything.
Yeah,
I would love to hear more about your laser cutting experience, because every time I have this Enamel Pins 101 group that I have, and we do like monthly chats. I don't really sell it anymore, but I still keep up the monthly chats because we're like friends now. And we're always talking about the equipment, that it's like, don't put me down that rabbit hole again, because I will get this. And it's always like these larger pieces of equipment to make stuff. So I would love to hear about
for sure.
Laser cutter.
So I have a Glowforge Pro. And I bought it in one of those delightful years where I made too much money and needed to have a big expense at the end of the year. And
as you do.
I did not have real plans for it. Like at the time I was using this, like, I don't know, maybe $40 tiny desktop Amazon laser engraver. And I was just engraving blank pins that I had made. And that was a total pain. And I was like, let me get a real one and see what I can do with it.
Yeah.
Almost immediately realized I don't really want to do this anymore. I have like tubs and tubs of blank keychains and pins that I can engrave, but I'm just like, I don't want to do it. So it took me a while to figure out, like, I had the machine, it was there, I had access to it. I would, try and cut little things here and there, but it took a long time for me to find its purpose.
Yeah.
As far as like what it could do for my business. So once I finally learned how to actually cut acrylic properly.
I was going to say the learning curve is probably.
Yeah. And then B, figured out like what it could do for me. Like the disco ball thing just clicked. And once it clicked, I was just like, this is amazing. I can have an idea and then immediately make it and see it come to life. And that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's been so fun.
I love your disco balls. So, for listeners, you have a disco ball. It's usually like a smaller, medium-sized one.
Yeah.
And then you have this piece of acrylic that goes around it. So you've got like flowers, you've got like sunburst. You've done so many different designs. So then the light is bouncing off of the disco ball, but then also going through the acrylic.
Yeah.
And it's gorgeous. They're so cool. How did you even come up with that? It's such an original idea that I think is so fun.
Well, I started by making a plant hanger that had a disco ball hanging from it. And then it just kind of happened. Like I was just kind of like playing around and I was like, what if I could put a ring around this disco ball to look like a planet hanging down from this plant hanger?
Yeah.
And then so I cut one and then I was like, how do I get it to stay in place?
Yeah.
And then once I figured that all out, I was like, oh, I can do so many things using this process that I just figured out. So it literally just clicked because I gave myself the room and the time to just play.
I love that.
So I try to give myself that space as often as I can. I mean, obviously when you're running a small business and you're having to worry about your clients and yourself and your sales and wholesale and shipping and like, it's a lot of stuff that kind of, clogs up the time. So setting aside time to literally just play and figure things out, it's so impactful.
Absolutely. How do you find that time? Do you have to be like, this is my time on the calendar, I'm setting this aside, or do you just kind of follow the energy?
So that doesn't work for me, like scheduling a time. It just, I have to just like follow the energy. Even if that means, oh, I was typing emails, but now I really want to do this thing, so I'm just going to go hide in the studio, or I'm literally just going to start designing stuff on the computer. I guess I just have to let myself get distracted by it. If the inspiration hits, I have to just take advantage of that, even if technically I'm supposed to be doing other things.
It's so necessary,
maybe are higher priority.
But like when you're creative, like some people can plan that time, and like I do love to set aside a time where I don't have any expectations and I can just do something, no matter what. But sometimes you sit there and it's like staring at a blank piece of paper for however long.
Yeah.
But then, you're in the middle of doing something else, quasi zoned out of the task. And then your brain goes, oh, over here.
Yeah. Well, actually, one thing that I found really helpful is, I mean, not that I ever want an in-person event to be slow, but if I'm at an event and I'm literally just sitting there at a table, just kind of like waiting for people to come talk to me, I love having my sketchbook with me at pop-ups. Nice. So I'll sit there and I'll just, like, I was at a pop-up that was primarily plants, like plant vendors.
Yeah.
Which was dangerous for me. But when somebody would come into my booth, if they had already bought a plant, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to draw that, and then that kind of led to just other ideas. So sometimes I'll go into it with, like, I wanted to focus on designing new 5-panel hats. Because that's another thing that feels like it has become like inherently mine within my brand. It's very you. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and on this page, I'm literally just going to sketch out some ideas for 5-panel hats. And I'm just going to draw them out. I'm going to use the colors that I have and I'm just going to figure it out. So pushing myself, typically it's like, it just comes rushing. Yeah. Like when I actually give myself that time and that space to do that, it all just kind of pours out of me. Like I just sent like a bunch of new sun catchers to production that I made all in like an hour.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Like things like that. And I just have to take advantage of that kind of inspiration when it hits, because otherwise my brain is just like being pulled in so many different directions, like in running the business and in having 2 dogs who are constantly asking for my attention, which I had to kick them out of the office to be able to take this call.
Yeah, the cats aren't allowed in right now because it would be chaos.
At least they don't bark.
That's fair. That's fair. How we should talk about the puppies though.
Oh, always.
Oh my God.
Crazy dog lady now. Yeah. So I mean, I have 2 dogs. I like to say this is my little line that I say when people ask me what kind of dogs I have. I say, I like to say I have 2 Chihuahua mixes, but one is 65 pounds and one is 20 pounds. So Amaro, our big guy, he is almost 5. He's 65 pounds. He looks like a golden retriever. Everybody thinks he's a golden retriever. Yeah. But he's like German Shepherd, Chihuahua, Lab, Pit Bull, like super mud. And he's got a dock tail and a fluffy booty, like a golden or an Aussie. He's so cute. He's a big sweetheart. And then my little guy, his name is Grave Digger. We call him Gravy for short. Yes, he's named after a monster truck. Little 2.5-pound puppy when we got him. Named him after a monster truck. He's 20 pounds now. And he is a Chihuahua Rat Terrier mix mostly. He's my baby. Yeah. He's like obsessed with me. He always wants to be cuddled in my lap. He gives me so many kisses every morning. He's a sweetheart. They're both super, super sweet, but there's lots of squirrels around here. So, they bark. Other dogs walk on our sidewalk, so they bark. Yeah. So we just moved into a new neighborhood in Portland, and we have the biggest yard that we've ever had. It's so lovely.
That's awesome.
And the dogs are so happy, and that makes my heart very happy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the thing when we moved, because now we're in the middle of this neighborhood. We're surrounded by trees, and we have some windows that go down to the ground. Oh. So I'll put, it's like critter mix that you get from the store. It's just seeds and corn and things.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll put that stuff out. I have a little bird feeder in the tree right outside our big picture window. Yeah. So they can have cat TV.
Cute.
And it's so much like for them to see and experience. Our kitten was, how a cat like XXX at things. Mm-hmm. He was there was a deer like 3 feet away from the back door eating some corn, and he was like, he's 1 year old and he's like up on the thing. I'm like, what are you gonna do to this deer?
Yeah, I mean that's my little Gravedigger 25 pound 20 pound dog. Like, what are you gonna do, bud? What are you gonna do? Yeah, our version of dog TV right now. So in our new place, our office is on the basement level, which is technically actually on the ground level, and it's connected to a garage. And the garage is where I have my laser cutter, and it's where I do photos and everything else. Yeah, so I have the garage door open, and I just put a little doggy gate across it. And Amaro especially likes to just lay there and watch the street. And he's met a few neighbors that way because they see him just like being super cute in the garage. So that's
awesome.
Been really sweet. Yeah,
I love that. It's so funny. What is it? We work to make a good life for our pets.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it's wild because I imagine the nature situation too, because moving from Austin up here, it was almost like this weight was lifted from my shoulders, because everywhere I went was like in Austin was like half an hour away, and my office was like half an hour away from the house, because like getting a space in Austin proper would be super expensive. So I had an office in Cedar Park, and it was just so much concrete and so many terrible drivers. And, like, I don't know, it just felt like I always had my hackles up, when I would leave the house a little bit. Yeah. And being here is just like, oh, everything's just kind of green. And it's a little quiet. Yeah. It's like a breath of fresh air. So I was wondering if you felt similarly.
Yeah. I mean, in LA, the last place we lived was on a 5-lane street with a Popeyes across the street and a gas station. Like,
oh my God.
We were we were in a major thoroughfare, and it was loud, and there'd be people screaming, and there was lots of just stuff. It was very loud. Stuff happening all the time, surrounded very closely by neighbors on all sides. Like, when we got to Portland, like the night that we arrived at our first house in Portland, it was so quiet that I felt like I had to whisper in the backyard.
Yeah,
I was just like,
quiet.
what is happening? It's like
and
nobody
so
lives
dark.
Here. Yeah,
it was so dark at night.
Yeah, it was dark and it was very quiet. And yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, I always found a way to seek out nature and to appreciate even the, like, you know, the neighbors' gardens and whatever around me in LA. Like, I'm just drawn to the green things, and I find those things, and I can take comfort in even just a small amount of it. But yeah, in Portland, it feels different. It feels a little softer and a little quieter, and I like it here. I like it.
It's about, like, of course there are things I miss about Austin that, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I loved, especially food. I have to make all my own queso now because there's no one in the area that I trust.
Oh gosh. Yeah, look, when moving from Houston to LA, so there's a very big difference in Tex-Mex and Mexican food.
Yeah.
And California has more like actual Mexican food, not Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
So even places that we went to that were just like calling themselves Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
Big fat no. There was one place that was specifically like a Texas style place. Yeah. And we ate there a lot. Primarily.
I was going to say, did they hold up?
They held up. Look, that was like my happy place.
Nice.
Because you walk in and the music was always good and the smell of the fresh tortillas being made would just like calm me down immediately.
Yeah, you're like, my nervous system can reset now.
Yeah, and the queso was actual queso. It was perfect. Yeah, we miss it. And in Portland, we found there's a Texas barbecue food cart.
Okay.
And with our recent move, we moved closer to it. So it's like less than 10 minutes away.
Ideal.
Yeah, they have legit, like,
it's the good
barbecue, good queso. Yeah.
Amazing.
It's a comfort to be able to find that so close.
I wish there was a new place that opened down the street. We're like, okay, the pictures look all right, and I get there, and on the menu it said cheese sauce, and I said, oh no, oh no, it was terrible. The salsa was tomato water, and I was like dumping Cholula into.
So it wasn't even like nacho cheese. It was like. Worse?
I don't even know. It was worse. I don't know what it was. I don't know. Truly. We're sitting there and all of us are just like, because even my son's really picky too, but like, he was still like, what? I don't know what this is. I don't like this.
We still try at like different Mexican places if they have something that sounds like it's going to be queso. Yeah. But usually it's just not. And we've had places where we're like, well, maybe if we dump the salsa into it and mix it around, it'll taste a little better. But it's hard. It's hard for non-Tex-Mex places to really get it right. And
it's true.
That feels so silly for me as a Mexican American woman. But like, I grew up in Texas. I grew up on Tex-Mex. Like,
it's like, I saw someone made a reel or a TikTok, and they're like, sometimes I just want trashy, like, Chewy's Tex-Mex food. Like, that's all I want. And it's like, yes.
Chewy's will always have my heart. Okay? I don't care what anybody says.
Yes. My gosh. The closest one is in Tennessee.
I'm visiting Houston to see some friends and family in a couple weeks. And I'm like, I hope somebody has time to take me to Chewy's because...
Yeah, no, I went to Torchy's because I went back twice since we moved for like family stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just need to go to H-E-B and I need to go to Torchy's.
H-E-B comes up with literally so one of the like random and unexpected kind of like communities that we've found in Portland is people who are from the Houston area or just from Texas. So like I have two friends who I've reconnected with who I worked with when they were like junior graphic designers at two different places that I worked with in Houston.
Amazing.
They both just happened to also end up in Portland.
So
So, I mean, it's been like a decade since I've worked with these women and like we've reconnected and we've met a few other people too, like people who we didn't know, who were also like, yeah, from Houston. And I'm like, okay, we can talk about like queso
awesome.
and HEB.
Yes.
Just like, yes.
HEB is a necessity. Like I truly, like I went down for a cousin's wedding and I bought a new bag that I knew it was like a bagoo that I could collapse. And I was like, this is going to be big enough that I can take it as my carry-on. And then when I come back, I can check my suitcase full of sauce. So I literally had like salsas and, that red sauce, that green sauce, the enchilada sauces they have. I had stuff from Salt Lick. And it was that's all my suitcase was.
I don't usually bring stuff back, but I will sometimes I will either have somebody take me to the grocery store immediately when I get there.
Yeah.
Or I'll place an order for delivery to wherever I'm staying. And one of the things that I always get, like first thing, and my family knows this, is a box of Bluebell ice cream sandwiches. Because they are like no other. And
nothing else is like
the cookie part is like the only ice cream sandwich I've ever had where the cookie is like crisp and it's got like some bite to it.
It's not that sticky.
It's not sticky, no. And I want it so bad now that I'm talking about it, but I'll be there in 2 weeks. Those ice cream sandwiches will be waiting for me in some beautiful HEB, and it's gonna be glorious.
You're gonna walk in, it's gonna smell like fresh salsa. It's gonna be so good. Like I miss, because Bluebell mint chocolate chip is like, that's my jam. Like there's truly no other kind of mint chocolate chip ice cream. I have tried every single one on the market.
I'm more of a Rocky Road kind of girl.
That's good stuff too, though.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with any of Bluebell is just superior. No. Yeah. It's I miss HEB. It seems so silly.
My little Texas heart. Yeah, no, I mean, when Jacob and I would visit during like stressful family things, if we needed a way to just kind of decompress, we would literally just go to HEB and like walk around because, we are from Texas and, our relationship was born in Houston and we spent so much time shopping together at HEB and like, it just kind of, it has a calming effect for us to be there and to know where everything is and to kind of like,
no,
that feels so weird, right? Like to have such an emotional connection to a grocery store, but
people that are not from Texas don't understand because HEB like takes care of you. Like they were there for the people after the freeze faster than the flippin' Texas government. Like HEB cares.
Yeah, they do. I believe that. I
love them. Yeah, I have. It's so funny because I walked around with my cousin. We were there, and I was like, "Do you want to just go walk around HEB?" And she's like, "Yes." Yeah. And I was getting all these little things, just like Ziploc bags and like little Tupperware containers that have HEB on them because I like having it in my house.
Yeah.
Like in Michigan, there's something funny, and I got one of those little kids. They have the little like kid-sized shopping basket and it's full of like fake HEB food. So
that's really cute.
So I kept, my aunt took most of it for, baby cousins and stuff, but I kept the butter tortilla, the tiny baby butter tortillas.
Oh, cute.
And I have the basket on my countertop and that's where my fruit goes.
That's really sweet. I
love it so much. It's so funny. It's so funny to love a place, but also be like really glad that you live somewhere else. I don't know.
True. Yeah. Absolutely.
Two truths. I think that's something I've been learning a lot lately. Is two opposing things can be true at the same time.
For sure.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So what do you guys have coming up? I know you've got your big holiday shows coming up. Is that kind of where most of your energy is going right now?
Yes. So we this week have to kind of get out a ton of wholesale orders, which I'm grateful for, but then also just start ramping up production for the disco balls because we make, we cut all the acrylic and do all the assembly in-house. So that's stuff that it takes a long time. It takes a lot of effort and we have to just do it. We have to just do a lot of that. And of course, taking care of our pin department customers and all of their orders that they're trying to get ready for their holiday markets. And mostly we're just going to spend the rest of the year working our butts off to make sure that we can have successful holiday events because all of the events that we're doing through the rest of the year are events that we're doing for the first time, and we don't know what to expect. So we're only going by, what the feedback that other people have given us.
I was going to say, what have people said about them in the past?
Well, I mean, I talked about how there are so many events in Portland, and that's exciting, but it's also the kind of thing where they kind of balance each other out, and everybody's kind of fighting for attendance because, there are just so many of them. And we're doing several, but we got the feedback from different people who are like, oh, that's my favorite one to attend as a shopper.
And then
I had another a shop owner tell me that, for the holidays especially, that Seattle was a really good place to be because there's just people have more money there.
I can see that.
They just have more money because of tech and stuff. And in Portland, it's like a bunch of creatives just kind of trying to support each other. And it's like, I'm making sales and I'm making money, so I'm going to go spend my money at another, where in Seattle, it's a little bit higher.
It's more customer centric.
So we're doing Renegade in Seattle, and I haven't done Renegade since I did it in Austin 5 million years ago. And I have just a completely different set of products and like display and experience than I did at that point. So I'm really hoping that Renegade in Seattle is good to us.
I think it will be. That one always seems so huge. Sam from Hemleba will be there. She's always there. So I assume I say that. I don't know, but she probably will be. Hi, Sam.
Yeah.
But that one seems like it's like that one and the Renegade in Chicago seem like they're always like on it.
Yeah. If Seattle does well for me, then, I'll consider traveling further for some of the other ones, because it just feels like in order to survive in this climate, I'm going to have to get back to putting myself out there and meeting people in person and selling my goods in person and getting that feedback that in-person sales
That's true.
offers.
You get the immediate feedback from customers of what does well, and you can tell what doesn't. And I have to say, in Ann Arbor, they have the largest curated like craft show, art show in the country. And it's in like June or July. The weather is gorgeous and it is humongous. Like we were there for like 3 hours and I couldn't see everything. I was like, this is bonkers. Because it's like 3 or 4 shows all together in one spot. And people like come from all over. And there were people from all over showing. There's like New York and Miami and like all over the country were coming. So I'm just saying, if you want to take a look, I can find some info. Come stay with us.
Send me a link.
In my garage. Heck yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, traveling for shows, one of the hardest things to consider is how many expenses there are just for getting there and staying there.
And like shipping product versus taking it with you to the airport, like what it's going to be. It's so...
I don't think I've ever flown for an event before. Like I've never had that experience of like packing my inventory into suitcases to go somewhere. I've only ever gone to events that we can drive to.
Yeah, same. Yeah, Libby has. Libby's done that a few times, but she does trade shows and all that stuff too. That's a whole other level that I can. My constitution could not take that.
Same.
Yeah, but I'm glad it works for her.
Yeah.
Yay! Well, I'm so glad that you were able to take some time. I know it's so busy, and I appreciate everyone who said they could take a little bit of time really quickly for this crazy podcast. But
I mean, look, it's just like catching up with an old friend. So
yeah, it truly is. Yeah, we don't have to do this and record it. I just miss you.
Same. Yeah,
because it was 2019 before everything changed.
Oh
was
yeah,
the last
when
time,
you were in
California.
California,
yeah, that was such a fun time. That's like core memory for me.
Oh, you mean losing the car at the observatory and walking way too far down the hill and not knowing where the rental car was?
That was totally my fault.
Like, we spent more time looking for the car afterwards than we did at the actual observatory.
We truly did. But it was beautiful outside.
Yeah, it was an adventure. It was an adventure.
It really was.
Oh.
But you were amazing. I appreciate you. I thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. Be sure to check out Tiny Deer Studio on Instagram, the Pin Department also on Instagram, also .coms. If you want pins made or any other products, like seriously, I always recommend Just First, because especially for newbies, if you're not sure what you want to make or how to do pins, like it's the best way to go, because you know your stuff, lady.
I do. I can help.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Okay. Bye, friend.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. If you could take a couple of seconds to maybe rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, that would be really helpful to me, and I appreciate it. Don't forget, I do have a Patreon as well. All the links will be in the show notes. And if you want to find Jessica, check the show notes as well. I'll have direct links to her shop, to the pin department. She's absolutely fabulous. And I really can't recommend using her more for any kind of products that you want to make. Like, she can get it done. She's the best. All right. Thanks so much. And we'll see you next week.